Jesus was going through Jericho. He entered Jericho and was passing through it. And Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector, the text says. So not just a tax collector, but he was in charge of tax collectors. He was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. Now, your thought about people who are rich will depend on whether you aspire to be rich or whether you are. Most people don't think they're rich. They usually think that someone is rich who has maybe 2 or 3 more zeros than they do at their income. Even the people who have the most money in the world say that they want a little bit more, or a lot more in some cases. Zacchaeus was rich by the standards of everybody else. We don't know what he thought, if he thought he was rich or not, but everybody else thought that he was rich. And Zacchaeus was trying to see Jesus. Jesus was passing through. We talked a couple weeks ago about a Leonard Ravenhill quote that's just so helpful, that the opportunity of a lifetime must be seized during the lifetime of the opportunity. That there are many things that are really excellent, but they're only available for a short window of time. In some cases, the window of time is quite long, 70 years in Israel's case for its chance to be blessed in Babylon. But in some cases, the window of time is very, very narrow, just a matter of seconds or possibly minutes. And if you don't seize the opportunity, it's gone. And Jesus walking through was like that. Jesus was not going to come back. He was walking through, and Zacchaeus, was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him, and he couldn't see Jesus because he was short and the crowd was taller than him. So what will you do in a situation like that? When other people prevent you from doing something that you believe would be good, what will you do? And many people will say, well, it just didn't work out. I tried. But there were these things that got in the way. And surely, if God was in it, the way would have been smooth sailing, and nothing would have gotten in my way. But in fact, if you read the Bible, you know that when God's getting God's way, there's all kinds of obstacles that people are overcoming all the time. If you think about anybody that you like, that you admire in business, in sports, in entertainment, whatever field you're interested in, if you think of somebody in that you admire, they have had to overcome one obstacle after another. And it may look like their life is golden, but that's because they have persevered and overcome obstacles. So, when things get in your way, will you let them stop you? Things can be people. In Zacchaeus' case, what was getting in the way was people. But many times it's not people. Many times it's us. It's our pride, or our desire, or our lack of confidence. Some aspect of us that gets in the way. So when things get in the way, will you let it stop you? Or will you do what you know would be good, what you believe might be helpful? George O'Keefe has a quote that it's going to split the congregation. And I don't know if it's going to be 10 to 90 or 50-50 or how it's going to be. But what you think about this quote definitely won't agree with all your neighbors. So here's her quote. When so few people think at all, isn't it all right for me to think for them and get them to do what I want? And some of you will think, yeah, that's what I've been saying all along. And some of you will think, oh, that's horrible. That's just... But the reality is that you will meet Georgia O'Keeffes in your lifetime. People who realize that you're not thinking very hard, and they'll tell you what to do. They'll be happy to do that. And will you do what they want or not? Or will you be a Georgia O'Keeffe yourself? Decide what you want and just go for it. Some people let a lot of things get in their way. Some people don't let hardly anything get in their way. Zacchaeus ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree. So Zacchaeus doesn't care what other people think, which is actually an admirable quality. It's helpful if you need to do something that others oppose, if you don't care very much, or at least don't let them stop you when they have a different opinion. Because the reality is that almost every invention that has caught the world by surprise, before it was invented, people were saying, "Oh, no. You'll never do it. It's not worth it. Why are you wasting your time? This will never happen." And for the few people who believed that it had happened, they had to persist, not only through the difficulty of whatever it was, the invention, the physical challenge, whatever it was, they had to persist through that, but they also had to persist through people who were saying, "It's not worth it." Or, "It's not you. Somebody else could do that. Who do you think you are?" And if you aren't blessed to have friends and family who are speaking this into your life, you might just have a voice inside your head saying the same stuff. Zacchaeus gave you a good example for what to do. He ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree. It might not have looked great for someone like a bank president or a CEO of a corporation to run ahead and climb a tree and admit he wanted to see Jesus so bad he'd do anything and even look foolish. Because he just wanted to see Jesus. When Jesus saw this as he passed by, he called him by name. Jesus knows your name. Jesus called Zacchaeus by name. "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down. I'm going to have dinner at your house." Now, maybe this is just good strategy of Jesus. If you're going to eat, if you have to have lunch, you may as well go have lunch with somebody who has resources to have a good one. He was rich. But Jesus was far more strategic than that. He wanted to see Zacchaeus on purpose. And one of the reasons that he wanted to see Jesus wanted to see Zacchaeus was because the crowd didn't want Jesus to see him. When we started the story, it wasn't apparent that there was anything going on aside from Zacchaeus being short that was keeping him from seeing Jesus. But as the story unfolds, we find out that the crowd is actively trying to keep the two separate. Because they don't think Zacchaeus, well, he's not only rich, he's a sinner. And they don't want him in Jesus' presence. They think Jesus is too holy for Zacchaeus, and Zacchaeus isn't good enough for Jesus. And luckily, Jesus doesn't have that opinion. Jesus doesn't think that anyone is too undeserving, too sinful, too whatever. There are many people who think that about themselves. You'll hear it all the time. "Oh, I can't go because of this or that I've done. Can't go to church, can't get close to Jesus." That's not Jesus' opinion. "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down." But the crowd, all those good church folk all around, started sniping. Jesus has gone to be the guest of somebody who's a sinner. Hopefully you won't have people around you like this, so that as you start helping out drug addicts, as you start helping out people in prison, as you start helping out people who desperately need help, they won't say, "Oh, you know, I used to think highly of this person, but now all she does is hang around people who are bankrupt. I don't know what she's doing with them." Yeah, better not let your kids hang out with him because he's always with the drug addicts. Jesus has gone to be the guest of someone who's a sinner, and Jesus replied to this comment. And one of the things, as we've been going through Luke, you'll find out this complaint, it's not the first time we've heard it. We've heard it a lot. That lots and lots and lots of people do not like Jesus and Jesus' followers hanging out with just anybody. But Jesus and his followers hang out with kids, with rich people, with poor people, with sinners, with people who think they're not sinners, often a worse, harder case. Anybody. Jesus is hanging out with them. Jesus says the Son of Man came to seek out and save the lost. Now, this doesn't play very well with people who actually are lost, because most of the people who are lost don't like thinking they're lost. They're not lost. They know where they are. They're in some opium den, or they're somewhere doing something, and they're not lost. They know where they are. Their family may not know them where they are, but they know where they are. But Jesus regards this from God's perspective. Are they doing things that are helping them live the optimum life that God created them to live? Are they living in a way that brings joy to them and glory and honor to God and is the best possible use of their days? Because everybody has a certain number, an unknown number to us, but a known number to God of days, and they're finite. And Jesus is out looking for people by name that God regards as lost. Not yet found, but beloved, greatly loved. We sang a minute ago a song that is just really helpful in this context as a prayer for us. Teach us the lesson that Jesus taught, to feel for those his blood has bought. That there are people that are held in contempt or disregarded. Jesus paid an ultimate sacrifice for them so that they could be part of God's kingdom. And Jesus does not despise them or look down on them. Teach us the lesson Jesus taught, to feel for those his blood has bought, for all our kindred far and wide, since Jesus Christ for all has died. Grant us the will and grace provide to love them all in you. So 2 messages today, or maybe a third one that you've and the Holy Spirit have come up with on your own. But at least 2 messages. One is, if you've got a good idea, do not let anybody stop you. Your height, your lack of self-confidence, your pride, the people in the way, people who don't believe in your dream, whatever it is, if it's a good idea, you can still be polite. But you don't have to get stuck by them if they're blocking the way. And second, Jesus died for the whole world, not just the parts of it that you especially like. And it's worth it to reach out to people that others are trying to keep away from Jesus. Jesus is especially looking for them. We're going to take a moment for prayer. God, thanks for your amazing mercy. Thanks that it includes me. Thanks that it includes all of us. Thanks that it includes the world. Thanks that there's nobody outside your favor. That you proved your love for us in this, that Jesus died for us before anything that we did. So for people who don't yet know your amazing mercy, we ask that you help them to find Jesus. And especially for those folk who are climbing trees just to get close enough to see Jesus. Thank you that you know them by name and that you love them. Amen.